Curtis was born in Dadeville, Alabama, a little country town, in 1938. He was one of 6 children. Kurt was next to the baby in age. His 2 older sisters helped raise all the children because the parents divorced when Kurt was like 6 years old and the baby was 4 years old. And his daddy got all the children. I didn't meet Kurt until 1962, my senior year in high school. And my mother's parents lived in Huntsville, Alabama. And we would go up and spend the day sometimes on a Sunday, go to church with them, and then come back. And we usually did that about once every 2 months. My mother's baby brother, he and Kurt were living together in a trailer in Huntsville, Alabama, and they both worked at that time it was called Redstone Arsenal. When we went to the door of the trailer to knock on it, Kurt was there with him, and that's when I met him. I'd never seen him before, didn't even know about him. I always came and spent a week with my grandparents after I would get out of school every year in Huntsville. When I got there, my Uncle Ronnie said, "Kurt wants to see you." And I thought, oh my goodness, he's 7 years older than me. But what was so strange, my dad was 7 years older than my mother. So we saw each other every day that I was there, which was a week. At the end of that summer, which was only 2 months, 2 weeks, and 2 days later, he proposed. And I said, my dad will have a fit if he's going to be thinking that I won't go to college. He said, no, you're going to go. He said, we will wait till you get through with those 2 years, which we did. So we got married in April of 1964. I was 19, he was 26. We had Melissa 3 years and 5 days after we married. She was the only child that we had. The reason I said yes to him, he was older, more mature, and he was very kind to me all the time. There was just something about him that's why I said yes. I knew that he was the one. Kurt was always in the space industry for work. He worked in the space industry more than 50 years. We both wanted to see a shuttle go up so bad, and all that time, we got to go one time to see one. We got down there, my boss had let me off. He said, even if you don't have vacation, go on and go. I want you to be able to see it. We get there, it was scrubbed. It never went up. We never got to see a space shuttle go up, and Kurt was in that for over 50 years, except on TV. That's how we got to see it. Kurt served in the military before I met him. He went straight from high school. He was in the Army for 3 years. He was even stationed with Elvis Presley, but he said he only got to see him from a distance. We lived in Huntsville, Alabama for 7 years, from 1964 until 1972. And we moved here with the space industry. At that time, we moved here with General Electric. Kurt's favorite hobbies happened after we got here because one of his sisters metal detected with a metal detector, and he got interested in that. So he started metal detecting, and he did that for probably 40 years of our marriage. He always found coins and rings and keys and glasses, and he loved to go to the beach, to Galveston, to metal detect. So another thing he liked was panning for gold. But Kurt was always one that if you needed help with something, it was something he thought he could do, which was anything except air conditioning and heating. He couldn't do that. He helped several people here at this church, especially the widow women. That's the ones that he catered to because he knew they needed help. Kurt always seemed to be the one who was friends with people who you might say were the underdog, that people didn't pay much attention to. Kurt had been a quiet person all of his life, but once you got to know him, he would just talk and talk and talk. When our daughter turned 8 years old and we were at the Bayshore Church of Christ, she started saying, I want to be baptized. And I said, Melissa, you're so young. And Kurt was the one who suggested it. He said, why don't you ask a couple of the elders to come talk to her? So 2 elders came and talked to her, and they came out and they said, she knows what sin is. She knows what baptism's for. She knows why you take communion. They said, if you discourage her now, in years to come, she may never do it. If she was ours, I would let her do it. So that Sunday night, Melissa was sitting between us. She went to go ahead and get out and walk to the front, and I looked up front and I thought, oh, well, he decided to be a support for us. I guess I better go too. So I folded up the book and I went up there too. And when the preacher asked Melissa if she believed in Jesus Christ, and she said yes, he said, and that's when he said, and we have another one that's going to be baptized too. And it was Kurt. I didn't know that. He stood up and I started crying like I do now. And he stood up and they asked him to make the confession, and he did. And I was happy, I was shocked, I had no idea. And they both were baptized that night. This church changed Kurt spiritually. It just seemed like he was closer to everybody here. He was closer to God. He loved the classes that we went to, the Sunday morning classes, the Wednesday night classes. Just something about being here, and that was another plan that God had, because God planned to take him. He never complained through cancer. He had 5 surgeries in 6 years. He never complained with any of them. He was a good person. He was honest. He wanted to help people. He wanted to be a good Christian, and he loved greeting at this church. He only went to college for about 2 classes. At that time, University of Alabama had come to Huntsville, Alabama, at an extension center. Even the week that Kurt died, he would get back there at night. He was on the computer, learning something on the computer of how to do something. He was very intelligent. Boeing kept him on until he was 71 years old. He was honest. He always took care of me and Melissa. He did everything he could to make a decent living for us. He wanted to always do better, learn more, do for other people. That was his thing, of doing for other people. And he didn't want to take money for it. I just miss him just knowing he's there. He was very easygoing. He didn't get irritated and start screaming and anything like that. So I miss the fact that when I would get upset, he'd hold me. And I don't have that anymore. So I miss just knowing he was in the house and knowing that he did care and he loved me and I loved him.